Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Abeokuta, the capital of Ogun State in southwest Nigeria, this week played host to a meeting of governors of the 17 states in southern Nigeria on the platform of the Southern Governors Forum. The governors were invited to discuss, debate, and demarcate their plans for the region. At the meeting, host Governor Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State was elected chairman of the Southern Governors Forum, while Anambra State Governor Charles Soludo emerged as vice chairman. Minimum wage, infrastructural development, and intrastate trade were all on the agenda, as Adefemi Akesoya reports.
Their states comprise Nigeria's geographic bottom, but the success of this bloc of southern states is a top priority. Descending on the presidential lodge in the Ogun State capital, Abeokuta, was the Southern Governors Forum. Led by Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, it's the first of its kind since the death of former Southern Governors Chairman and Ondo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu in 2023. Leading the pack of arrivals was Lagos State Governor and Chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Putting partisan politics aside, the leaders sat to discuss, debate, and demarcate their plans for the South's future. 17 governors were invited, 16 attended, either in person or via representative. Thwarting a nearly perfect attendance was River State Governor Fulbara, who made no appearance. Clergyman and Akwa Ibom State Governor Umo Uno delivered the opening prayer, and with that, the closed-door meetings began. They reopened with the announcement of Governor Dapo Abiodun elected chairman of the Southern Governors Forum, with Chukwuma Charles Soludo his vice chairman. A move Governor Abiodun says he's humbled by.
It underscores the commitment and the determination to ensure that the southern states occupy their pride of place.
On the agenda was minimum wage, infrastructural development, as well as intrastate trade and investment.
The issue of infrastructure was an important one. But we didn't even discuss that issue without first acknowledging what our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, had recently done. The conceptualizing of the coastal road, and more importantly, the flag off of the construction of the coastal road. We were unanimous in appreciating the initiative because we can see how much of an impact it will make to the economy of the entire southern region. And the part of Ondo State where this road will terminate, ideally if you are traveling from Lagos to that part of Ogun State, today it will take you about 5 hours. When that road is completed, it will take you about 30 minutes. That is the transformation in terms of impact that this road will have on our people. The construction itself, the sheer size of it, will provide hundreds of thousands of jobs. And you can imagine the multiplier effect of that.
The unity among the leaders was evident in the uniform worn, all in matching blue adire, a nod to Ogun State's homegrown fabric.
That just underscores how we want to be defined going forward as one indivisible, united region that is blind to party affiliations or tribe or ethnic or religious tendencies. This is a tie and dye design that has been produced in Ogun State for many generations. And when I assumed office, the industry was dying. It was dying because The Asians were coming here, they were copying their direct prints, taking it to Asia, and bringing it back as prints, like Ankara prints. And by so doing, it was robbing this small or medium-scale enterprise of job opportunities and of income. So I said, we must do something to resuscitate this industry. And I decided that everyone in Ogun State must wear adire on Fridays. That is the public service in Ogun State. And there are about 70,000 of us.
Future editions of the Southern Governors Forum are expected to be held quarterly, where stock can be taken on whether these leaders can take the South all the way to the top. Adefemi Akisoya, Arise News, Abeokuta.
Well, Dr. Sam Amadi, director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, now joins us for a discussion on how this fresh attempt at consensus building by Southern governors can serve as a veritable launchpad for deeper cooperation and partnerships within and outside the southern geopolitical zones of Nigeria. Good morning, sir. It's great to have you again on The Morning Show. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thank you. My pleasure.
So let's go straight into it. We're seeing, the Southern Governors Forum recently meeting in Abeokuta, resolved to take on a unanimous position on the new minimum wage, as well as deepening cooperation and infrastructure and interstate trade. Now, how significant is this move towards consensus building among the southern states? And in what ways can this fresh attempt at consensus building serve the peculiar and collective economic needs of the partner states?
Well, I think how significant it is or it will be depends on the degree of will, commitment expressed amongst them and the content, the idea that they are pushing. And so, just to be clear, we've seen the Southern Governors Forum has always been there at a point. It's always maybe a forum for them to usually meet, exchange ideas, some kind of friendship, deepening cooperation, maybe at personal level, and basically also relax as governors, as peers. So it's we borrowed it from the U.S. model, the Governors Forum. We had it in Nigeria, then now regional, and then even the geopolitical zones now have their own. But the key thing is that ideally, it provides a platform for sharing ideas and models. So some states probably that are leading in some innovation would bring it and discuss with their governors, other fellow governors who pick ideas, maybe exchange personnel as a form of deepening knowledge transfer and technology quote-unquote transfer. So it's a peer review, peer learning platform. And so the way we are right now today, with all the clamor for restructuring and the clear inefficiency of a centralized economic intervention, whether it's a minimum wage or whether it's infrastructure or whether it's basic human development issues, education, healthcare, poverty, we need the states to be more active. And because of the fragmentation of our state border, we have 36 states with some of the states not too viable financially. You would expect that some scaling up of economic intervention, whether it's especially in infrastructure, would need some kind of state cooperation. So it is the right thing to do to move towards a much more, institutionalized and deepened kind of cooperation between the governors. In the past, communicate, take photo ops, news flash, and then nobody sits back to work out the managerial, administrative implementation, issues around the broad decisions they make. So, yes, it's significant if it kind of boils down to rework at three levels. First, political. There are questions around local government reform, issues around regional state structure, and so on. Now, these are constitutional issues. At the level of governors' forums, certain governors, if they create a consensus and agree on a model, then it makes the work easy. It lowers the cost of transaction, what economists will call transaction cost. And it's like it operates more like cooperation. You know, the economic argument for having corporations is that it makes you reduce on cost of transaction. So in the same way, if you have a regional collaboration that is reasonable, meaningful, and actionable, then it reduces the cost of transaction, of negotiating different House of Assemblies and asking them to approve major constitutional reforms. So a real consensus and a structure that allows for building issue-based consensus on some of these issues will help, Nigeria transition to whatever form of structure that will produce good governance. At the economic level, apart from sharing knowledge and, borrowing from each other and learning from each other's mistake and failing if they are rigorous, it also provides some larger platform for trade. They talk about inter-trade. Well, that's an African problem. Regional inter-African trade is very low, and that accounts for part of our economic crisis. Within Nigeria, one can argue also that inter-region, interstate trading may be lower still. So if they create that kind of economic convergence, they could deepen specialization and improve trade among themselves. So, Lagos and Abakaliki can supply rice, and then probably Imo and Ebonyi can supply cassava, maize, different things that way. So it's really an opportunity that can be deepened with greater work around programming, around, teasing out framework, and then having people in those governments who will follow up on these decisions. The problem is that some of them will fly back to their states and get engulfed in politics and other, superfluities of governance in Nigeria. And that's really what might be a problem here.
I'd like you to speak further on the significance of the Southern Governors Forum. But this time I'm interested in what you think regarding the personality of the chairman. Of course, if you recall, Governor Dapo Abiodun's predecessor was the late governor of Ondo State, Akeredolu, who was known for his heroic stand as far as internal security, regional security was concerned, as we saw him demonstrate during the Amotekun thing. So do you think that leadership of the forum can play a role, particularly in the debate around what constitutes living wage, as we are discussing the difference between a minimum wage and minimum salary? The governor of Edo State is part of the Southern Governors Forum. He's already paying 70. Now, many of the governors are saying, let us pay according to what we are able to afford. A lot of people will argue, of course, that both Lagos and Ogun State, not to talk of Delta and Rivers, should be able to even pay more than Edo State. So do you think that the personality of the person in charge or the leadership of the forum can play an important and significant role in channeling the direction of the forum?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. That's a very important question. And again, the nature of Governors Forum is that, incidentally, it falls on the leadership. Look, these governors are busy. Once they elect a chairman of that forum, that chairman, the nature, the quality, what that forum achieves is actually 80 to 90% on the chairman. They're going to abandon the work and wait for the chairman to summon them, to nudge them, to remind them, to coerce them, to come even for meetings. So you are absolutely correct. So under the former chairman, we saw, especially towards the last 2 years of that government, that he was very gung-ho on, pushing for regional police, autonomy, the Amotoko phenomenon, which even those in the Southeast were begging their governors to move along the same line. And then in a half-hearted, maybe, incoherent manner, they came up with the Bubago platform. But again, he showed leadership. And again, we know that he also fought for the, Southern presidency. I mean, his avuncular kind of leadership on this, his dynamism, of course, he showed a bit of that as president of NBA, rubbed off and created a momentum even at that, some governors food rat, expectedly, because look, the thing about governors is that they feel like, and they're rightly to feel like sovereign. So you see some governors, they really wouldn't bother about what's going on. They'll sign up, attend meetings, take photo ops. So it rests on the chairman to drive this consensus. Sometimes do all the work and have his brother governors sign off. Now, what Dakpo, a slightly different build, and profile from the late senior advocate who, caught a state, both in student unionism and then in MBA activism as president. But Dakpo perhaps it will be a more subtle politician, a more subtle leader. Leadership comes in different profile. Some are physically dynamic, some are, look very strong, activistic. But like scholars of leadership have told us, the key point is effectiveness. So if Dakpo leverages on his, political smartness and build and strengthen this consensus, and also become more sensitive to what the people are saying and be able to craft policies and ideas and programs and sell to his colleagues, they will get success. On the minimum wage issue, they should realize that a national minimum wage is a benchmark. So even if Edo is paying 70, Lagos could pay 90 or 80 because Lagos is far more richer than Edo State, it doesn't mean that Imo can pay 30 or 40, no. It means that the governors, the southern governors should come up and say, look, we want to meet labor at this level. Others can go higher. Maybe let's assume they all agree for 70. Lagos can say we can do 90. Rivers, from what we heard, some of the states, a few of the states, Lagos, Rivers, informally expressed that they could go as high as perhaps 80, 90, depending on those states. So they have to come up with a southern position on the national minimum wage, which they sell to their northern colleagues. But the key issue here is that they should realize that it's also in the interest of the economic development of the region and the states and their states that they have a minimum wage that is actually a living wage. You see, the economics around living wage has been distorted to look like zero sum. If you pay more, we lose. But actually, if you pay better, you win. Even somebody as entrepreneurial and capitalistic as Ford himself in those early days of minimum wage, committed and said, minimum wage, fair living wage is good for Ford Motors. The notion here is not a zero sum. They get, we lose. It's a win-win. Motivated staff, workers, more consumer power to spend that can drive up the economy, less poverty. So all these interventions that the federal government and states are going to work out on transfer of cash and all that will be, supplemented, even if it's in a better way, with a wage that can allow their citizens to purchase, allow their citizens to take care of themselves medically, health-wise, education, and that virtuous circle, creates a momentum for economic development. So I think this is one thing that Governor Dakpo could lead on and say, let's be more reasonable. And then, again, cost of governance. The southern governors can lead. You see, the notion of federalism, as the U.S. Justice once said, is what we call cooperative federalism. You want to see states or regions experiment, and then that experimentation becomes a national brand. So can southern governors begin to lead on cost of governance reduction so that we see clear in their budget that they are making those investments in human beings, in education, in the key drivers of development. And then that would now motivate their northern governors to also begin to look at this a big elephant in the room called cost of governance, which nobody wants to deal with. And so I think that the character of leadership that the governor of Ogun State can show is an experienced governor. He has shown that he's effective in political transactions and negotiations. So he could negotiate a consensus on a reasonable minimum wage. And then that sells that to the governors of the northern states, and then we'll find that the governors have moved to a more reasonable proposition than where they are right now. And so I think that this is an opportunity for him to define himself. The late governor of Ondo defined himself in a very strong, campaign leadership on autonomy, on state powers, on state sovereignty, and on the Southern presidency, and on security for the regions, the South and Southwest particularly. He can now lead in creating an inclusive economic system that helps back to generate growth in the Southern region. And that could be where he shows leadership, and his political skills really, position him to do that effectively, to negotiate and nudge those who are, dragging behind to say, look, we can actually make progress on this, we can get this done, and we can serve our people better by doing this.
Dr. Amadi, now I want to ask, this forum brought together governors from across the states, but there was a particular governor that was missing, and that is the governor Sim Fubara of Rivers State. Earlier this week, it was reported that there was a bombing in the state, and Sim Fubara, the governor, claimed that it has to do with the political crisis going on between him and the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike. Now, these political differences, do you believe that this is something that the Southern Governors Forum should be weighing into? Beyond the economic ties, beyond challenging insecurity within the region, do you think when it comes to political stability, this is something that we should see the forum wade into? And also, if we're talking about the leadership, do you think that it is equitable in our current administration to have a Southern Governors Forum whose leader is from the Southwest region?
Well, let me take the first one. I mean, the last one, the one about equity around having a president for the South and the Southern region for the same Southwest. I think really the Southern Governors Forum, the logic of its leadership succession has based on two things. One, mostly seniority. I mean, those who are second-term governors usually lead. And then consensus. So some of the governors would easily defer to, one of them as, okay, you've been around, just lead. So I think we should not, read equity into this much, because this is not representative of anybody. We don't vote them. They don't decide budget or appropriation of projects. This is actually a knowledge clearing platform for governors for peer review. So they could actually choose whatever they want. In fact, in some point under Obasanjo, some people had power for too long. They say, continue. They have confidence, continue. So I think that should move from Saraki to Rivers governor and so on. So I think that's not a big issue to worry about. But the main issue is, which is important, is the political issue. Look, the governors, the first and primary responsibility of the governors would be to help one another to maintain good political environment, democratic environment that allows for investment, that allows for economic growth, and that allows their citizens to flourish. So this is the crisis in Port Harcourt provides an opportunity for them because they are influential. I mean, and again, throughout the history, we've seen that the Governors Forum have not been deterred by political differences in terms of partisanship. So they have always found a way to gel, to move together in spite of their party differences. What they have not found often is the capability and the commitment to use their friendship to generate solutions to problems. And that's where I want them to go, to be more programmatic rather than ceremonial. So they've got this social capital together. They've got this bonding, this sense of friendship, and they could use it to weigh into the Rivers matter and provide. They have the clout. They could actually talk to the governor and bring even Nyesom Wike in and normalize relationship. That's important. And again, Rivers State is critical, just like Lagos, Ondo, Ogun State, Rivers State, Enugu, some of the culturally significant and politically significant centers. Let's even leave the economic, strategic importance. We shouldn't allow what's happening to continue. I mean, so that's another lever of negotiation and of, conflict mitigation, because they have the institutional competence, they have the resources, they have the charisma, they have the clout to speak to their fellow governors and say, this is how we think it can navigate. And he wouldn't, oftentimes these governors have a sense that anybody who's not in power has no value. So when a governor talks to a governor, there's some kind of sense of stakeholding. We are in this together. You know, you wear the boot, you know where it pinches. So that's really what I think they should head on to. They should first start with creating a conducive political environment that allows democracy, that allows development to happen. And what is happening in Port Harcourt River State is festering and deepening. And perhaps that should be the first challenge for DAPO leadership of the Southern Governors Forum.
All right, quality words there and advice for Governor Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State, who's the chair of the Southern Governors Forum. So we want to thank you, Dr. Sam Amadi, for the quality time shared with us on the morning show today. Thank you indeed.